from working and traveling around the world. She took her GMAT in Thailand, applied for a PhD program in Vietnam, had her interviews in India, and finally accepted a position while in Ethiopia. Traveling is one of the main reasons why Brooke is perpetually broke. Otherwise, Brooke fills her time with philanthropy. She is helping arrange a prom for the pediatric oncology ward at St. Christopher's Hospital and previously served as a Down Foster on the board of directors for an university. She is also an avid winner, likes to run a long drive with a dog Jethro. She is currently training for the Philadelphia Half Marathon, which is taking place on November 18th. Yeah.
Thanks everybody, thanks for staying. I'm going to try and make this quick and easy on you. The good thing is this is a soft science and it's about marketing, so everybody here can relate to it. Even if you haven't been to a Marsh or seen any kind of dinosaur bones, you should at least know about advertising. But so basically, just to give you a quick backdrop of what I'm going to be talking today about, I look into the theory of anthropomorphism. That in and of itself is already interdisciplinary. So anthropomorphism has been talked about in religions, it's been talked about in the social sciences, and particularly psychology, and now it's the main focus in marketing. So what the theory of anthropomorphism is we look at and see when something's been humanized. So from a religious perspective, we've had a lot of gods tend to have faces. We want to put faces onto them. A lot of deities have been described with tables or whatever else having some sort of a motive or any kind of conscious will. And we're seeing this a lot now in marketing where you have a lot of spokes characters like the Gecko or the Pillsbury Doughboy that are influencing people. And so we know that in general that anthropomorphism makes you like a product more. If you see something like a Pillsbury Doughboy, you're going to automatically like it better. The reason why is there's a cognitive influence in your brain. You see it as human, and since it's been human and it's been humanized, you automatically bring it in closer and you like it more. So we know that generally that it's going to increase the overall likability towards the product and towards the brand. We know that people are more loyal to something that's very anthropomorphized. So let's say your car, you're giving your car a name, or your computer a name, or your cell phone a name, and you feel like it has any kind of conscious will, you get loyal to it and you don't want to get rid of it. It's really hard for you because you feel like you're going to be you're hurting your car's feelings once you drop it off and switch it in. So we're kind of understanding this is in the social realm of how we're actually interacting with people. So basically, this is what I'm showing you guys. I'm going to give you a quick view of what I'm doing for my dissertation. But the area in the gap that I'm looking at, I actually, when I was volunteering with an animal rescue, I was fostering dogs. And I noticed that whenever we put the dog's description written in the first person, so I need a home, I'm really sad, can you please adopt me? We were getting not only donations towards that particular dog, but we were also getting, people were adopting the dogs faster than when we put the description up in the third person. So he's really fun, he's really cute, he needs a home. People were just not as receptive to that unless the dog was actually speaking from the first person. And so when I looked at the literature, yes?
Did giving it a name make any difference? Did you try that?
Yes, yeah, definitely. The more humanist you actually put onto the animal or whatever else, the more, that's actually part of what I'm going to be going into. It's what I've noticed, the more it turns into a different level. So generally within our literature, within the social psychology literature, within the marketing literature, we just say if something's been anthropomorphized, it's got the same univariate approach and effects. And what I'm saying in my contribution to the literature is I'm saying, well, there's different levels. And if there's different levels, then there should also therefore be different effects of what's going on. So if we're on one particular the spectrum, then there should be things that are interacting differently. So over here. So if you see here, this is an example of two different types of advertisements. These are print advertisements. This, and also just for control purposes, because I run experiments, I'm only looking at print advertisements in this particular this study. There are more effects, I would imagine, with something that's animated like the gecko. But for right now, I'm just focusing on But so this is Mrs. N, or Mrs. Brown. She's the new M&M spokes character. She walks around in heels. She's the one that's been in commercials. She's also their main new spokes character. She has glasses. She has hands. She's got a sassy attitude. And this is what I am calling explicit anthropomorphism. And then on this print advertisement, you'll see that there's dogs that are lining up to go to the bathroom tree. Obviously, a very humanized perspective, and something that a dog wouldn't necessarily do. But we can understand that there's been a humanization of what's going on here, and what the dogs are not going to be, obviously, like I said, not going to line up to go to the bathroom. But so the thing is that within the literature, within even within marketing, we would have normally said that that's the same effect. And I'm saying, well, no, they're different. They have to be interacting with something differently. So I'm looking at what I'm doing is I'm looking and saying that there's two different types of anthropomorphism. That there's implicit and explicit anthropomorphism. And I'm also looking to see how this actually interacts. So I'm introducing two different moderators of cognitive resources and also the accessibility and persuasion knowledge. Because if anybody's ever listened to the SPCA commercials with Sarah McLachlan, where it evokes a lot of emotions, people feel persuaded. And so when you feel persuaded, a lot of consumers generally hate that. You don't want to feel like you're being manipulated at all. And so I'm kind of taking a look to see that, particularly with donations, how does that affect you? And then the fourth study that I don't know if I'll have enough time to go over that, but looking at spontaneous inference. So I'm looking to see like how quickly does it take you to actually recognize that something's been anthropomorphized. So this is the overall of my first chapter of my dissertation. So I have explicit, implicit anthropomorphism that's going to overall affect your brand attitude, and then the two different moderators of cognitive resources and persuasion knowledge. So the first study, just looking at different types of main effects. My actual definition of implicit brand anthropomorphism is to imbue a non-human entity with indirect and subtle human characteristics. So this is something like this is the dog. These are the dogs lining up in the park to go to the bathroom. It's something you kind of have to spend a little time to understand what's going on, but once you finally get it, then you can understand that there's humanizing. But the thing is about anthropomorphism is that it's automatic. So before you actually even recognize that there's humanness, your brain recognizes that it's there before you can finally make sense of it. So one of the big things about this too is that a lot of products are made with implicit anthropomorphism. So you're going to probably, after this presentation, you'll probably start to notice a little bit more. But one of the most classic examples are cars. So something like the Volkswagen Beetle looks like it's smiling. There's a couple of other different cars where people put eyelashes on their cars. Advertisements that are set to 1010 for a watch. If you see a watch advertisement, they generally are always set to 1010, and it's because it looks like it's smiling. And so looking at all that, I came up with the actual definition to say that it's something that's written in the third person, so like he or she. That the anthropomorphized entity has taken on a human shape but is not necessarily completely human. So my new vacuum, which is a pet hair vacuum, if you look at it, it looks like it actually has a nose, and it kind of looks like it has ears, like it's an animal. So you're I promise you after this presentation, you're going to start noticing more of these things. And then also that it's moving in a somewhat human-like manner, but not necessarily completely humanized. The idea of the explicit brand anthropomorphism is when the spokes character, the advertisement is speaking from the first person. So this is the gecko. It's moving around like a human, again like a gecko. It's wearing human clothes, like what Mrs. Brown was just wearing, and then has human features. So those are the ones that are actually a lot more easier to come up with examples for because everybody's very aware of them. Implicit is actually more present in our society than we kind of realize. But so anyway, so this is the first study that I ran to kind of get an idea of the general gauge to make sure that what was going on. So this is actually a real advertisement that came from South Africa. We changed, in Photoshop, we changed around the brand name. We added in a tagline that says "Beauty Admired." And as you can see, it's a faucet that's actually staring at itself and it's admiring itself. So it believes it's so beautiful, it's staring at itself. And obviously, it takes a little while to kind of understand what's going on, but which I can show if I get to it in my fourth study. Your brain actually recognizes it a half second faster than this does. So, we manipulated the picture, we gave it some eyes, we gave it some text that's from speaking from the first person, it's the same tagline, and then the same brand name, and it's still admiring itself. It's just that it's actually being a little bit more overt by saying, wow, I am beautiful, so that you can pick up the fact that it's admiring itself. And the control condition, we have it set up where it's just a regular faucet. So, and we also got rid of the tagline, so that way you weren't influenced at all by what's going on, because it wouldn't make too much sense. It's admiring itself, it's got its back to itself. Okay. So our main thing, this is just a one-way study of main effects. We found that overall people like the implicit ad a little bit better. This is consistent with previous research and different types of advertisements. In general, people like artistic advertisements. It's just, people like the idea that it's artsy, that they get it, it makes them think. People are very proud of themselves when they finally figure it out. And so then that makes you actually like something a little bit more. And aside from that, then explicit was rated second best behind the control condition. And also, just to establish that there is an actual effect, we found that the people recognize that something's been anthropomorphized or humanized at a better speed. So people recognize that there is humanization in explicit, implicit, and the control conditions. All right, so while this is going on, we're kind of like, there's got to be something else that's going on. Obviously, it's a little bit more than just what's going on with these different types of advertisements. And so we wanted to take it out of the actual realm of looking at it from a for-profit sense. We wanted to look at it in a non-profit sense, which is actually what had driven the whole thing with my volunteering anyway. And we wanted to understand, like, what happens if the consumers are just flipping through a category, flipping through a magazine and they come across something and they just don't have altogether that much, their fully devoted attention completely to the advertisement. And so, or if they're looking at, their phone and or they're scrolling through something and they have something else that's going on in their mind. Because one of the things in experiments is we can make our subjects actually stare at something without any other distractions, but that in the normal consumer life it doesn't ever happen. So we wanted to know kind of what would happen, therefore, if consumers have what we call a high cognitive load. So they're thinking about something else while they're actually looking at this. We wanted to get an idea of what's going on. So what we did was we had half of our participants had to memorize a 9-digit number and have it keep going in their head while they were reading the advertisement. And then the other half of the consumers just were able to just read the advertisement and let it be. And so we also looked at this in this perspective too of like, well, how does this actually influence how much money and how willing you are to actually donate to an actual cause. So what we did with this advertisement is this is an animal rescue. We manipulated the actual the text as opposed to the picture. We have uniquely human attributes that we added in here. So something that's really complex is like a complex emotion is what is uniquely human. So something like anticipating, optimistic, and hope are all things that are uniquely human. I think everybody here would agree that a dog can be happy, a dog can be sad, and so can humans be, but you wouldn't necessarily be thinking that a dog is really anticipating something. And when you do it, if you do think that that is, then that's actually considered anthropomorphism because it's complex, it's a very complex emotion, and it combines things. So it brings us into the realm of humanizing. So with implicit, we took a look and adjusted the language with anticipation, optimism, and hope. We had it written in the third person. In explicit, it was the same type of ad, except that it's written from the first person, and we removed all the text that's uniquely human. And then for control, it's the same as it was for the explicit. It's just that it's written in third person, and again with no emotions. And what we found, which was actually really cool, is that under low cognitive load, consumers, which basically means you didn't have to remember the number. When you don't have to remember the number, consumers are more willing to donate when the dog has been humanized with emotions as opposed to being written from the first person. So under high cognitive load, though, the consumers are, when they're thinking about the numbers, that humanization isn't getting kicked in, that human schema isn't getting kicked in. But with explicit, we see that it's the opposite. So with explicit, when it's high cognitive loads, they have to remember the number. They're more willing to donate than when they are just seeing it just without having to remember the number. And so to look into that a little bit more, we wanted to understand, is it because consumers are realizing they're being manipulated? Is it the Sarah McLachlan effect? They realize that there's been some sort of a heartstring that's been pulled on that is making them feel manipulated. And so we took a look to see the actual different type of persuasion appeal. So what we call hard sell or a soft sell. Hard sells are buy this now. You've got to dial this number. It's only going to be around for 15 more minutes, so you have to get to this number now. Versus the soft sell of just kind of like, hey, give us a call. Here's our email address. Just donate whenever you can. Which you see the two different types a lot. And so there's six different types here. So I'll flip through them quickly. But so with high persuasion, implicit, we have the same different types of words. We've got anticipation, optimism, and hope. And then we also have 100 rainforest. We've got the number added in there. Join our cause, donate now. We have a little bit more urgency added into the text versus the low persuasion where we kind of dial it down a little bit. We still have the same with the number. Everything is the Penny and Cyrus are written from the third person, so it's very similar. Just gonna go through this, and then what we found, which is also pretty cool, is that under a low persuasion type of advertisement, the consumers are actually much more willing to donate with implicit anthropomorphism than they are when it's a high persuasion. So basically that means if I'm coming at you and I'm saying, Jay, I need your money right now, and I'm trying to humanize myself or trying to humanize the animals, you're going to say like, no. But if I come up to you and I say, hey, listen, can you give me some money and donate? Then you're going to be more willing to do that. So this is pretty important when you think about things like the SPCA or any other type of organization, like any kind of rescue or something that's not a human, like where you're not trying to find any kind of donations for humans. If you're looking for any kind of cause, those tend to actually be the causes that are more neglected in research. It's kind of interesting to look and see how these are, how consumers react to it. So just quickly, this is something that I collected just last week, so it's preliminary, same as Ramona's. But it's also really cool in the sense that if you remember, if you can recall from the faucet advertisement, basically it takes our subjects about 3 seconds to recognize that something's been humanized when implicitly anthropomorphized, and it takes almost a half second longer when it's been explicitly anthropomorphized, which you wouldn't expect. The theory says that any kind of implicit reaction, which is something that's automatic, you're not bringing it into your mind, you're not bringing it into your prefrontal cortex. That is generally theory-wise that any kind of conscious thought that you have always takes longer. And what I found in my research is that this is true even for pictures and for any kind of verbal language. So you recognize things faster when it's implicitly anthropomorphized than when it's explicit. So, which is not, I mean, if I was to tell you just off the street, like that you would recognize a Volkswagen Beetle being anthropomorphized faster than the Pillsbury Doughboy, you would probably not believe me, but the research has shown that it actually is the case, which is kind of cool. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes?
That last thing you had with the parrots,
Yes.
I wonder if that same sort of research would apply to human beggars. You know, hey, come on, give me $1, give me $1, I need it right now, versus just sitting there quietly holding a sign.
Well,
And the sign saying, I have student loans, please help, versus
that's
God
actually,
bless.
yeah, that's a really good question, because what we've seen in a lot of research that I've had to pull from has been in social psychology. And generally, the way that works is we tend to think of beggars and panhandlers as it's considered dehumanization. So we don't necessarily think of them as the same as us. It's horrible, but it's an implicit reaction, and it's the words that they use are better. Like if they use things that are more complex, then they would get a bit more money. But I don't think, we have kind of hard to explain that so much.
I've seen only one really non-emotional hobo sign. It had like a countdown for how much insulin he had left.
Ooh.
Thank you, Brooke. Now we have time for questions and answers for all of the speakers. So I'd like to invite Paul and Ramona to join us here as and hopefully we have lots of questions and we'd like to have this engaging conversation to continue. And one of the goals of this kind of series is have interaction and dialogue about these presentations. So who is going to go first? Anyone? Okay, if you don't have any questions, I have one question for you. Right? So, I know all the three speakers have given some ideas about kind of different subject areas that you touch with. But in the process of learning about all these different subjects, what kind of strategies that you need to follow? How did you know that, well, now I'm going to need to learn about this subject? And how did you go about learning those subjects?
Okay, thanks. So I do I don't know, is anybody else here a social scientist? Everybody's here all hard sciences? Oh, okay. So there's two different ways. The way we work with social sciences is very different than hard sciences. With social sciences, the sciences, everybody's theory-based, but we have to read a lot of theories, and generally marketing pulls from psychology. So there's two different ways that you can go about doing any kind of dissertation work or any kind of research. You can read a theory, and then you can say, well, this doesn't make sense, this boundary hasn't been looked at, I wonder how this interacts with that. I do it the hard way, where I find an observation, and I'm like, hey, that's kind of weird, I wonder what happened, and then I go and find a theory that fits it. And so people understand, and because it's an observation and it's something I can explain to people, it's a little easier, but it's also can be something that's it's not as foolproof as going, I guess bottom up. I'm going bottom up as opposed to top down. So it's not as foolproof because I can easily have somebody say, well, that observation can easily be answered by something else, this other theory. So my way of doing research is probably a little, it's accepted, it's just that it's a little hard.
What Ramona?
I guess I'm going more the traditional way than people like it. So you've seen the one picture with the before and after with vegetation without, which showed me definitely, yeah, I have to take a look at this vegetation stuff. So what I did, I went back to the library page and found myself a ton of papers. And actually, this is the one big part of my whole research is that next month it's going to be published as a big review paper of what And that didn't even include that much vegetation stuff. So the first thing you do is try to find somebody who kind of worked on the same thing. So I found relatively quickly, if you look at the references of other papers that are kind of connected, you find people who do work on flow-through canopies, who find empirical equations that I can use in my model based on field experiments or even lab experiments. So most of my extra information that I get is actually from scientific papers, not so much from books.
So you go through all these different research papers and get some important points from those papers and see how those are connected.
And it's really like hopping from stone to stone. You find one paper, oh that's interesting, you look at the reference, you find the guys who go even more in depth into certain topics, or you find their papers. So this, starting with a handful of papers can lead to many more.
Excellent. This is an excellent point. And in your classes, when you're making your research papers, this is what you will have to follow this also sometimes, because that will also help you to discover a lot of research papers that you will use in your literature review process. How about Paul?
For our case in paleontology, it's very much so going straight to the peer-reviewed journal literature, very much the same, where you'll read one paper, it discusses that thing that you're looking for and want to know more about, track down those references, and you have a whole library that you end up with. But as our group is expanding out into non-traditional paleontology, things like animation and robotic modeling, we are directly contacting and then working with other groups here at Drexel, be it the engineers or be it the digital media design group. And they are helping to teach us how to do what we want to do and helping us develop it as we go. And so we're combining the traditional sort of literature search, which we would always do in our field, with branching out to within Drexel as well as to some co-workers beyond Drexel at other institutions that have done similar things, conquering it as a group.
Great, thank you.
Maybe one addition, because that's a good point. Especially when you're concerned about stuff outside of your field. For your field, you might know the big names that are important. So if you have the chance to go on conferences or other networking places where these groups kind of come together, try to learn how the people are in those fields. For example, every 2 years down in CAEE, they have this big Delaware summit, Delaware Estuary Summit, where not only modelers, because there's a ton of pure hydrodynamic modeling conferences out there. This is one where everybody comes together. The main reason here is you do research on the Delaware Estuary. No matter if you are civil engineer, biologist, ecologist, many social sciences people who do all this public relations stuff for all this work. And this is a good point where you can find out about people in your area that you don't, in that new area that you're not so used to, and to actually directly contact people. They will have more ideas about who you should look at.
Great, excellent point. Yeah, you have
John Steinbeck actually writes about during the Second World War, he and his ecologist friend realized that we have all these maps of all the shorelines of Japan. You know, tides and, help me out with this, everything that would be interesting to an ecologist. And the military didn't have these maps because it was classified.
Yeah.
So they contacted them and said, we've got these maps as you want them, and all these scientific papers and stuff. And apparently almost got put in prison. Are you a Japanese sympathizer? Where did you get these? These are classified.
Seriously, I didn't hear about something like that. Yeah. Now with Google Earth, everything doesn't matter anymore. Just go on the computer, you find them.
Wow, this is fantastic. So I was just thinking in my mind, so different subject areas covered so far. So starting with you have psychology, you have marketing, you have industrial psychology, understanding human behavior, all sorts of fascinating points. In your case, you talked about vegetation, ecology, of course engineering, hydrodynamic stuff. Just in 2 presentations, you have touched on many subjects. In Paul's case, you have paleontology, you have learned about dinosaurs, plus robotics and modeling and engineering. So just in 3 presentations, we learned about so many subjects here, and this is really the key point, highlighting interdisciplinary research through the events like this. And I encourage every one of you here to think about your own projects, think about coming here and presenting your ideas. Not only you have an experience in presenting, but all of us will learn about your projects, we learn about new things happening here at Drexel. So I encourage very much to do this. And really thank Dr. Lin to come up with this idea of having books and Bagels series, with Jessica and all, Michael and Mitch. This is a fantastic initiative in having this, everybody coming together and talk about your projects. And before we end, just have 2 little questions. And one, I wanted to learn about 3D printing because I'm so fascinated by this. And across this campus and across these disciplines, do you see anything where this can be applied in different disciplines and how we can use 3D printing?
Yes, I know the engineers have had one for quite a while, 3D printer, and they use it to print out prototypes of various things they want to test. Test structures or different designs, and that sort of aspect, I'm pretty sure can be linked to architecture, things like that. Anything with a design component, I think, can be cued in on it. And just before I forget, the library is going to be purchasing a 3D printer so that anybody can come in and they can help you figure out what you want to print, what size. So in the near future, they'll have one for everyone's use.
And do you have any other questions in the audience? We would love to have interaction, engaging dialogue. No? Yeah, there's one question back.
I'm a big Apple blogger, so I'm always getting begging letters from ASPCA, the Name Society, et cetera. And your presentation made me think about implicit expectation. Because they're always, we need money right now, we need money now.
Yes.
For this. But when things like natural disasters happen,
Yes.
I'm thinking back to seeing a lot of things out there, pictures in and a lot of hurricanes. And
Haiti and all these kinds of
yeah. Personally, I found myself more receptive to that we need money right now when it was connected to a natural disaster. And
Right.
when I think about it, logically it doesn't make sense. There's millions of animals put up in shelters every year because they don't have money to support the things to help an animal. So what difference is
What
there?
difference? Okay, that's actually a great question. So I'm not sure if everybody heard. So basically, why is it when we see something that is linked to a natural disaster, are we more willing to donate, and like what's the urgency? There's actually a great paper that was written by Small and Brooke over in Wharton. They're 2 marketing professors, and they looked at that with humans, not necessarily dogs, but the paper is called "In the Face of Need." And so what it is basically is when you are just looking at us, and it kind of applies to a lot of different areas within the social realm, social sciences realm. But when you have something really big and it's just like this ever-present need, you're not going to be thinking about it as much as possible because it's like the theory of large numbers. You just kind of can't picture it in your head. But when you see something that's been broken down into something a little bit more finite, maybe you can see something that's there's actually less people that need that, then you're more willing to give it to them. And it actually is kind of counterintuitive because you would figure that if more people need money, then you'd be giving money all the time. But what we find is that the smaller the population is, the more willing you are, because it evokes your empathy.
But is it also, like your example, you get weekly or on higher frequency these
Donation
letters,
bills, yeah.
donating for the doctors everywhere, it's all around, that you sooner or later kind of shut down with a natural disaster and have one for the wild. That reaches you a lot earlier.
It has to do with the different levels of empathy that you can apply to things, but generally it winds up being that if you can actually picture it and you can see that it's a smaller number and it's a problem that you can actually help and the number of people that you can help or animals that you can help, then you're more willing to actually donate.
If it's a small enough group, especially with animals, you might be able to fix the problem.
Right.
It's like, okay, the problem is this one dog is going to get put down. Problem solved.
Right.
Well, the problem is these 1,000 dogs are going to be put down. Okay, now I have 990 dogs.
Right.
Now I have 10 dogs.
Right. Yeah, so it's, and that's why with a lot of the animal rescues, that's why they wind up just going out and saying, well, can you take 2 dogs and just transport them up and, you know, can you take this, can you take that? Because you can handle it at a smaller quantity.
Great. Wonderful. Anyone else? And the last question I have is, what will be your final advice to students in terms of research and how they can be motivated to do some more research? Anything that we can?
My biggest advice, I guess, I'm sure I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of people here, but I'm in my 5th year of my PhD program. I'm looking to graduate in June, and working on my dissertation, you know, I am interested in it. I definitely am, but I mean, you have to make sure you really are interested in it, because when your data comes in bad, or you can't figure something else out, or you know, somebody wants you to go out, or your friends are going out, and you really have a big deadline. It's just, you have to find the motivation to like really love your topic.
Great.
That's why I decided to go by observation as opposed to your.
And I guess one big point is what to do when it doesn't work as you want to. And I am one of those that acts like an ostrich that puts a head in the sand and ignores it for a while, but it doesn't go away. So really try to, don't wait, don't put it off, just do it. You have to do it sooner or later anyway. And as I said, if somebody here finds out how to do that easily, please tell me.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I would kind of reiterate the same point. Don't be afraid to get started early and to you know, jump on something that you're interested in. And at the same time, don't be afraid to be kind of flexible. Like your project idea may be like you'll find someone's almost done it already or something, but you can look at it from a different point of view, or you can look at a slightly related question that heads in a different direction. If it's still in that core what you want to do, don't be afraid to, like at the end of year 2, switch up that aim or something.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you all speakers, Paul, Ramona, Brooke. Wonderful presentations. We learned a lot. And please give them a big applause. Thank you. So this concludes our session today.